Alright guys, it's been a super long time coming. This is the Z31 that we're doing the fuel tech install on. And so we finally got everything situated. We had an issue with the intake manifold being stuck on. I had to send it to a friend's shop of mine, Norvin's Auto Repair here in Colleen. So he was able to get the lower off for me. And so the car got back here and we were going through all the fittings and stuff like that to get it situated. And so this is kind of where we ended up at. So over here we've got a 90 to a 90, and over here we've got a straight to a 90, and so, or excuse me, a 90 to a straight. And that's essentially going to pass through right here, and then we'll meet into a Y, and then it'll go into the regulator. The backside, however, we're still trying to fit that out, but we've got a straight back there. And on the other side, we have another straight. So we've got a straight into the straight. The problem is that it's really close to the upper intake manifold. So I don't know if you can kind of see back there where my finger is pointing. Okay, so here it is with the upper off. The lower is actually in and it's secured. You guys may not notice, may not remember, but we blocked that off. That's one of the coolant lines to the throttle body, and then we blocked up this port, which should be the other, hopefully it's the other line to the throttle body. I'm pretty sure it is, but anyways, so this is kind of where we're at here. So this one is the one that's a little bit suspect. It is a little bit far, so we may run into a 45 or potentially a 90. So I'll put that on and take a peek at see which is going to work best. And same deal, so these fittings will go down into a Y, and it's going to come down and then it'll meet into the fuel feed here. So that's basically it. So tomorrow what's going to happen is we will get the fuel rails. We're going to pull the fuel rails back off. We're going to hit it with the Teflon tape stuff like we're supposed to, and then we'll actually mount the rails. And once the rails are mounted, then at that point we'll kind of finalize our fitting. Okay, so it's another day. We're working on the Z. So I don't know if this is right or not, but I'm assuming that the brackets go this way. I've never installed these rails before, but I put the rail on first and realized you couldn't get to the bracket. But there's like a nice little ledge back here that the bracket rests on, so I'm pretty sure that's right. Now, as far as O-ring goes, I use the factory O-rings, not the actual factory ones, but ones designed for the factory, and those have the best fit. I've tried numerous O-rings, and none of them sealed just right, except for the factory ones. So I was able to wedge these onto the injectors, and then I'll go ahead and hopefully get these rails installed, and then we'll come right back. All right, so the rails are in. So here's a little tip for you fellas that are coming after me. So the brackets I put facing inwards, and so I took the rail out, hand tightened the bracket here, left it loose, and I actually put the nut, or the bolt from the backside in. And then you can actually line up the rails and the bolts and the injectors. It's a little bit of pain, I'm not gonna lie, but definitely was able to get it in. So with the bracket then the rail, I was not able to feed the hardware through. Now you could put it on the backside, like the nut and washer on the backside, but it was plenty difficult trying to line it up that way. I found that it was a lot easier to have the bolt from the backside out. So like I said, bracket, you know, get a couple threads in it, throw the bolt in it, and then you can line up the fuel rail and everything after that. And so now as you can see, both rails are in and they're tightened up pretty good. And so now we're gonna start laying out our fittings, finding our routes. All right, so we got a few fittings on. This one looks good. It looks really tight right here. It looks really tight right here, but it actually has a lot of movement here. There's a little bit of a clearance here. The only one that I really have concern on is this side here. So this side, when I originally mapped it out, I tried to run the fitting underneath here, and I totally forgot that, hey, the water neck sits right there, right? So I'm going to, obviously I've already put the fittings on, and we're gonna test fit the upper manifold. So I'm just gonna sit the upper manifold on here, line it up as best as I can, no gasket, no bolts or anything like that, just kind of line it up to see where this. Okay, so this is a problem that we saw yesterday, and that's the fittings face into the bundle here, and that bundle is just like lines that run from one side to another. So it's basically this guy here and a couple other lines. So I don't think we can run straights there, so we'll have to switch those to two I'm going to try 290s and see if it clears there. So the front side's actually not too bad. This is lined up again pretty briefly. It's just not going to be pretty. So I can have it come up and go over, but then we won't, I don't think the cover will go back on here. So I'm going to try a couple other different fittings to see if we can get it to come this way. We also got to pay attention to some of these other things here, like this, like, you know, we try to think about serviceability down the line to see how difficult other things are going to be, or try our best to. So but yeah, so that's basically how it's going to look. We're going to change this up, change the back ones out, and go from there. All right, so I went ahead and removed the hoses that we were interfering with back here. That was basically the only way I could get clearance, and we'll have to deal with that later. I looked it all over, and those are just hoses that go from one side to another, so we can always just replace that with just regular old rubber hose and figure out how to get it all lined up. But so we're running a 45 on one side and a 90 on the other side. Then up front here, I'm probably going to lob this off here. So the only way that I can get this to look nice is like to wedge this 90 in over here, but this one, it gets in contact with this one. So, and I'll show you what I mean here. So as you can see, it's already touching. I could alternatively run it out on the other side of that tab, get this lined up here, but it makes the line all goofy looking. So I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. I just don't really like it. So I may just kind of cut this one tab off here, and it should be fine, because if memory serves, the factory regulator bolted to this area right here, and I don't think that's going to be that much of a problem. So we're going to cut that off and get rid of it, and then give us the clearance that we need. So anyways, the two lines are made, the 90 here, 45 here, and they're just going to basically clamp together here, and we will put a Y fitting here, and then that will basically run back into our reg. So there's one thing I do want to talk about that we may actually employ, may or may not, depends. So this is the fuel pressure regulator from Deatschwerks. This is their DW1000. So the way this works is that traditionally you have one rail, traditionally you have one line from the rails going here, and then this returns back into the fuel tank. Now this does have the dual fittings, as you can see here, and that's really for if you need to put your fitting left or right. But what you can actually do is use this as a Y. We do this a lot on like Subaru applications that are what we call parallel fuel systems. You can actually run each rail into either side of the regulator, and that basically would work the same way as adding a Y. The problem is that the fitment of trying to put the rail here, anywhere here, and then having two fittings that run into the regulator does make it a bit difficult. So that is an option that we may or may not end up using. Again, I'm not 100% just yet on which route we're going to go. So right now my concern is actually just running the lines out of the rails away from the intake manifold first, and then from there I will figure out if we will use a Y or employ each side of this fuel pressure regulator. Just finished drilling the hole for the fuel pressure regulator. It is a hair off though, so I was originally going to cut the tab off, but I decided against it just because I don't know if everything's going to fit like I intended to. So I went ahead, left it there, safe than sorry, and then we're going to try to fit this up today. All right, so we got the fuel pressure regulator mounted. You can see there's a little bit of aquaphor here. I use that to make sure we had any contact with the hood. So like I shut the hood and made sure that there was like no paint, there's no transfer. So we're good there. And it's pretty sturdy. So the plan is to have one line from the rails. It's gonna feed over to here, and then the other line will feed into here. I've got to order a 6AN orb fitting here, and then we'll just run two straights to that. And so on this side, I have the adapter in, and that's going to go to our radium fuel pressure gauge. I've got to get a 90 right here, so the gauge will sit up. And then here is obviously the feed line, and the feed line is going to go through the back, to these two fittings. So we're making some pretty good progress. All right, so yesterday this tab right here was interfering with the fuel rail fitting to the regulator. So I've already cut it off. We're gonna put it back on the car and then test fit it. And then, so the fit is a lot better. It's, as you can see, it's just overall a lot better. It's not touching anymore, obviously. maybe a little bit. I've already sanded it down a little bit. I may sand it down a little bit more just to give us some clearance, but I'm actually really happy with where we're at now. And so this is essentially what our routing is going to look like. We're gonna get some dividers here, and with this one right here, I may have it run like that, put a P-clamp right here to hold it in place, and then we'll have the AN line dividers, or holders rather, to hold it together. That way we can just keep it nice, just nice and clean, you know. But yeah, so that's basically about it. We'll call that good for now until our other fittings come in, and then we will go from there.